Stump? Is that you, girl? I didn't recognize the voice and continued walking. I heard footsteps behind me. I had my hand in my bag, and the bastard was about to pepper spray me. Stump, hold on. It's Jeremiah, from college. I stopped, turned around, and he was in my personal space. Oh, hell, no. I didn't have time to deal with this. I was meeting my man somewhere around the mall entrance, and that was the last thing I needed. I rested my hand on his chest and nudged him, then took a step back myself. Jeremiah, if you ever see me again, don't talk, don't stop me. In fact, you should be going the other way right now, and if you ever see me again. See that man over there? I nodded toward the mall entrance 50 feet away. He looked, then did a double take. What about him? That's my man. I think I could kick your ass, Jeremiah. I'd be afraid of him. How should you feel? I wonder if he knows about you. This dude really thought he could play a prank on me. Believe me, he knows. A lot more than you do. Do you want to go and ask him? Are you a real man, Jeremiah? Let's go in there like you're a man. Go, Jeremiah, one way or the other, now. I turned and walked down the aisle toward Kaplan. His eyes were fixed on me the whole way. My man. God, you looked gorgeous standing down here waiting for me. I turned him around and we walked out of the store, me wrapping my arms around his waist and him leaning against the trunk of a tree with his arm around my shoulders. Your friend? The deep bass rumble of his voice always made me flinch slightly. No. Just a man I once knew. I'm ashamed I ever knew him at all. His name is Jeremiah Bay. I could tell you the story if you want, but it would humiliate me, and you wouldn't learn anything more than you already know. Do you want to know? He squeezed me. I'll decide later. When I've had time to think it over. I'm not as smart and fast as you. Where are we headed? Vintage stock, I said. I want to look at vinyls and games, and then TJ Maxx. How you holding up, big guy? He chuckled. More vinyls? I'm enjoying myself, baby. I'm with you, aren't I? Yes, I said. By the way, I have something to tell you. Sit here with me. We sat down next to each other on the bench, and I snuggled up to him. That guy, Jeremiah, he kind of threatened me. I felt him tense up. You want me to go after him? No, I think I handled it. Just wanted you to know that shit like that can happen. Someone could come up to you one day and try to force something on us using my past. He sat like that for a minute, then relaxed. Yes, I see your point. We agreed that the past stays in the past, right? Yes, I said. What will you do when that time comes? Kick his ass? Good man. I patted his arm and rested my head on his shoulder. I knew I could count on you. The vinyls are waiting. I pulled him behind me and we walked through the display cases. As we passed an eyeglass store, I heard a low voice behind me say in my ear, Hey, forgetful. I jumped up in surprise. It was Menasha, and she was wearing her cool new glasses. There was a lot Kaplan didn't know about me, and neither did Menasha, but I didn't intentionally hide it from them. Honestly, they never came up. Jeremiah, for instance. That story was no different from a million other stories that regular people can tell. It was just a part of my life that I no longer cared about, and it was of no interest to me in the slightest. No pleasant memories of the good old days, just boredom and some disgust. I was a wild child. There was no escape. From the time I was 16 until my sophomore year of college, I was on a roll. No one needs a catalog of my high-profile crimes and misdemeanors. I was lucky to be alive. It was around that time I realized it was self-destructive and got serious about education. Hey, I was a kid, smart and dumb at the same time. I grew up. I planned on making enough money to fund whatever shit I was going to leave in my life, and I had a pretty good head start. My mom and dad, high society types who at the time were pretty disappointed in their daughter but never could believe their angel was no longer a virgin princess, and I own the third largest real estate law firm in Florida, which I started with the help of a trust fund I got from my grandparents. I had disgusting habits. I didn't care about anyone or anything. Like I said, I grew up. My parents were now convinced that they had been right about me all along, and I was the star in the drama they called my life. Of course, it was all explained by the fact that I was now with Kaplan and Monashi, and they had two of the world's most perfect granddaughters. I sighed inwardly. What you sow is what you reap. I was just walking around the Nordstrom store sniffing perfume when I saw him walk by. I immediately knew he was an employee because he was wearing a store badge. He walked further down the aisle and I saw him talking to a girl behind one of the counters. I had to take a closer look. I walked over and just looked at him. I could have done that for years. The girl he was talking to noticed me. "Can I help you?" she asked. I ignored her. Not on purpose, I was just in a different space. "Can I help you find something?" he asked. I came to my senses. Just a little. "No, I just saw you walk by and suddenly realized I had to hear what your voice sounded like." "My God, Kaplan," the girl said. "If you do anything stupid right here, I'll be done with you." I looked, her name tag said Macy's. His name tag said Kaplan with manager underneath it. "I'd like to talk to the manager," I said. Macy laughed. "You have the wrong haircut," she said. We all laughed. We were all obviously fascinated by the memes and recognized the cliché Karen. He cleared his throat. "Well, I'm a manager," he said, "not necessarily a manager." His voice sounded exactly as I'd imagined it would, deep, sonorous, calm, bassy, and very sexy. I decided I could listen to that voice for the rest of my life. I thought about which bottle of perfume I was closest to finishing. "Can I smell this Maison Francis Kurkdjian Baccarat Rouge 540? I asked. He looked at me with renewed appreciation, and Macy brought me a test vial. I knew what it smelled like, but I planned to milk it. I saw him looking at me. I knew what he was seeing. I was well dressed, a nice skirt and low-heeled shoes to show off my legs advantageously, 5'1", 102 pounds, long ash blonde hair down to my waist, and I was slender, enough curves to interest them long enough for them to see my face. I had huge brown eyes, some freckles on my cute little nose and lips. "I don't really need perfume," I admitted to him. "I just wanted to introduce myself to you. My name is Stump Fairtax. My friends call me Stump, you can call me Stump." I held out my hand. "Kaplan Davis," he said, his huge arm around mine. "Unusual name." "I have unusual parents," I said. "Good, but..." Unusual is a descriptive word. "What did you want to say in that introduction?" he asked. "Well, for now, I've got high," I told him. We both laughed. "That's a good start," he said. When he took my hand, his hand was huge, warm, firm. I felt a wave of almost euphoria wash over me. I looked up, and there was a sort of dazed expression on his face. "Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" His voice was a little rough and velvety, which gave me goosebumps. "Can you?" I asked. "I'm a manager," he said. "I can do whatever I want to do. So yeah." He put on my perfume and we walked out the front door and headed down the road to Starbucks. I walked really close to him and held his hand. We must have looked hilarious because he was over 6 feet tall and just huge in everything. What I first saw under the rack of tops turned out to be his tree-trimmed thighs and nice pants. He was ripped. This man was just ridiculously attractive, and you could tell by looking at him that he was clueless about nothing. His hair was long, probably shoulder length, and he had braided it into a ponytail, looking like he'd just stepped off the cover of a romance novel. He'd obviously been working out, and that voice. I knew I'd never forgive myself if I just left without recognizing what your voice sounded like, I said. He couldn't seem to find the words, and I had to laugh. "A little choked up, big boy?" He chuckled, a deep rumble that made me wince, but it was obvious he was nervous. "Well, yeah, sort of." He chuckled again. "You're a little overplaying it, Stump." I laughed. I know. I'm sorry, but you'll know that when I feel something, I'll let you know. Yes? He looked surprised, but delighted at the same time. What, when? He laughed. Okay, Stump, what's going on? Look at me, Kaplan. Do you want this to be the last time you see me? He was really looking. I kind of half joked, but he took a minute and looked me over. Why the fuck would he do that? He must have seen a lot by now, so I figured he was giving me some kind of test. I chuckled. One dark eyebrow raised. What? I didn't think you'd actually do it, I said. I know. We both laughed ourselves silly. The woman sitting next to us looked at us. I propped my middle finger up on my cup. She saw it and tensed up, but I was talking to Kaplan and she couldn't be sure if it was intentional. Kaplan noticed it, however, and chuckled. I noticed you earlier, he said. I just did it to give you back a little of what you give me. You're a very skillful coquette, Stamp. I know, right? I had to admit I was doing a good job. You're doing pretty good yourself, Kaplan. No, I recognized the dark enchantress, he said. Well, I guess that doesn't fit. More like a fey queen. I went to the best schools, I said. Do I recognize these names? He asked. I laughed. Are you seriously asking where I went to college? Yeah, if you're going to practice your flirting on me, I'd better know a little about you. Oh, I liked the man. Have you ever heard of Murray Edwards College? No, I don't think so, he said. Is he local? I chuckled. No. What about you? Where did you go? Carnegie Mellon, he said. I'm in finance. Oh, Kaplan is one of those big brains, I marveled. He laughed. You live near here, Stump? About 25 minutes. I was just here between meetings. What about you? It's pretty close. You can walk in 10 minutes, which is probably faster than driving. I just work here because my boss, my real boss, thinks I could use some retail experience. To get a better feel for the hustle and bustle. He said there's nothing more hectic than an irritated housewife demanding to see the manager. I laughed. I agree, it's awful, but I think I could give them a head start if I was angry enough. He looked at me and raised an eyebrow. Good God, it was funny how attractive he was, so funny that I burst into laughter. What? Kaplan, I couldn't in a million years explain this to you. You're such a man-child, I'm constantly looking around to see the horde of women who must be flocking here even as we speak to warn you about me and take you in. He laughed. Okay, I expected it to hurt him. He had defense mechanisms. I knew how to break them, too. I can see you're good for everything, he said. Tell me you're an only child, Stamp. I don't think the world can take more than one of you. I happen to be an only child, I told him. Not by choice, I promise. I really wish I had a younger brother or sister to initiate them into lawlessness. Little kids everywhere thank the gods that you weren't their sister, he said. The dude was just peerless. Kaplan, would you go out with me? I asked. He looked shocked, and I laughed. I'm well aware that I'm not the first woman to ask you out. He looked embarrassed. Oh, God. Well, you kind of are, he said, and as flattering as it is, I have a girlfriend. Really? Dope, I said. What's her name? It's Menasha, he said. I had to laugh. And you said I had an unusual name. He chuckled. Yeah, but you're American, right? I call her Nasha, and she's from Africa. Oh, when can I meet her? I asked. He looked shocked. You want to meet my girlfriend? Why not? I asked. Well, you asked me out, and... I laughed. Hey, I like you, Kaplan. I realize you can't date me, but that doesn't mean I don't like you. I don't fuck all my friends, you know. We're going to be those friends, and so it's appropriate for me to meet your girlfriend. Ask if she'd be okay with you giving me her number or Snapchat. Now. He looked stunned. Well, anytime, I said, but you have to tell me when you do so I know I can let her know. We exchanged details, and I hugged him goodbye. God, what a delightful man. He was such a charming contradiction. I hoped Mon Nash liked me, not some weak-willed bitch who would feel threatened by me. I had been told that often. I found that few people understood my life. If you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, are genetically blessed and work on your strengths, you attract attention. I was always aware of this, but I didn't really care what others thought, other than the people and experiences I wanted in my life. I was usually good enough to be everything to everyone. Unfortunately or fortunately, Menashe turned out to be one of those exceptions. She saw right through me. I got a message from Kaplan and he sent me Menashe's Snapchat. I added her as a friend when I noticed the message and she reciprocated me. She had a cute little Bitmoji character. Kaplan said she was from Africa, so the fact that her avatar was black wasn't a total surprise. We clicked back and forth and sort of introduced ourselves to each other. I invited her over for tea and she accepted. The guard informed me that it was going up, so I went out into the corridor and waited for the elevator. Since my place occupied an entire floor, you could only get out of there if the guards gave you access to that floor. The hissing sound of an incoming elevator reached my ears, and the door opened. A goddess stepped out. My God, she was gorgeous. I struggled for words to describe her. She was indeed a goddess, but she seemed to be the goddess of mathematicians or librarians. Don't get me wrong, everything about her was beautiful/mathematical. Starting with an impeccably tailored suit that looked like wool or something, but the skirt was tight, ending about mid-thigh, and she had incredible legs. She had heeled shoes, but only 2 inches, not 4 or more as usual. God, she was tall. Maybe that explained the low-heeled shoes, but she seemed like someone who wouldn't wear uncomfortable shoes. Her shiny black hair was tied in a knot at the back of her head, and judging by the size of the knot, she had more hair than was humanly possible. Glasses completed the look. They were cute, but, again, nerdy. It was obvious she was a little shy, maybe even embarrassed, but God, she was gorgeous. I walked over to her, and she put her arms around me. She towered over me like a tree and my face was on her chest. I started to shake with laughter and felt her giggle a little before she let go of me. You're so tall and elegant, Menashe, I told her. I love it, but since I'm so petite, it can lead to awkward hugs. We both laughed. I took her hand and led her down the hallway. The ice was broken and I hoped this tall amazing woman would like me. Seriously, she was the female equivalent of Kaplan. Completely unaware of what amazing people they were. I'm so glad to finally meet you, Menashe, I told her. You can call me Nasha, she said in the most beautiful voice I had ever heard. She definitely had an accent, and she spoke very precise English. There's that gorgeous nerd thing again. But her voice was exactly that, low, a little husky, and velvet smooth. It's a deal, I said. I try not to abbreviate people's names unless they tell me they like it. I think it's not that important what people call me, she says. What matters is how they feel about me. I nodded. Yeah, I guess that's true. We're in deep shit, Nasha, and I haven't even poured the tea yet. She laughed, and a shiver ran through my body. I was going to make her do this a lot. We took tea and homemade chocolate chip cookies into the sunroom. We sat together on the couch and she soaked it all in. You have a very beautiful home, Stamp, she said. Thank you. I leaned conspiratorially toward her and whispered. I got him pretty damn cheap. The company that owned it was liquidated for bank fraud, and I knew about it. She smiled. I suppose you're a very important person? No, I'm small. And you're big. I held up my hands to reflect our relative height. She laughed, took a bite of her cookie and sipped her tea. She seemed to have found her resolve. Stump, Kaplan told me you asked him out, she said. He explained to you that we were in a relationship, and you seem to have reconciled. You just want to be friends. I don't mind you being his friend, my friend, our friend. He told me you were an experience and I can see he wasn't exaggerating. Kaplan is mine, Stump. Do you realize that? Do you agree? Don't lie to me, please. I'm human, Stump, I deserve honesty, and so do you. Please promise me you won't try to take him away from me. He is my life, Stump, and I will fight to keep him. She looked like she was about to cry, and I was horrified. Yeah, I'm a bad bitch, but this goddess was real. What kind of person mocks the innocent? I didn't. These people were on a different level than me, and now I felt like a villain. And it was a feeling I didn't like. I moved over and put my arms around her. No, honey, I would never hurt you or Kaplan. I'm not a good person sometimes, Nyasha, but I will never be a bad person in anyone's life. I promise, honey. I promise. I'm sorry I even asked him out. I wouldn't have if I had known about you. I felt her arm wrap around me and hug me. I was scared when I saw how beautiful you were, she said. Good God, Nasha, you're just a goddess, I told her. I couldn't take Kaplan away from you even if I tried. I'm not trying to. If he wasn't yours, yes, I'd be all over him, and he wouldn't stand a chance. You're obviously exactly what he needs, and vice versa. But I'm thinking about taking you away from him. I glare at her. I know how my eyes flash when I do. She looked shocked. Really? I laughed. No, baby, I was kidding. Same thing with you as him, though. If you weren't involved, I would have asked you out by now. Oh, God. She covered her mouth with her hand and giggled. Yes, it is, believe me. Nasha and Stump would make a great team. She had a peachy blush and was adorable. A goddess, yes. The next week I had an excursion planned. I knew beautiful people. They weren't really beautiful, except in appearance. Nevertheless, they were part of my life, my career, my environment, and some of them were harmless. I gravitated toward them and used their not-so-nice contacts to socialize and conduct business. I was a real estate attorney and had several large clients. I did my best to keep them and add new ones. I loved the game and was very good at it. It was a week on a Greek island and I intended to have a great experience. So I did, and waking up on the last morning between Ebony and Ivory, I remembered Kaplan and Nastia. Something in me twitched. I realized that I would be ashamed if they saw me. I was just reliving the high of the previous night. Now I had an irresistible urge to go and wash myself under the hottest shower I could stand. I got up without disturbing my companions, took a shower, gathered my things, and headed for the airport. I never looked back. For the first time in my life, I was disgusted with myself for my appetites. I had flown around the world on airplanes, sailed on yachts, ridden in limousines, all on money from some rich man's greed and lust. Who was I? I was tired of being a bad bitch, so. Me egomaniac's exclusive candy, just another in the golden set I was using for my own purposes. I came home and immersed myself in therapy. I also found my best friend, Nasha. The first time we met after my epiphany, I emptied myself in front of her, shed tears, and I think my vulnerability touched something in her. She trusted me, gave me emotional hostages, and I gave them back. Her life was not Disney at all. She nearly starved to death as a child, scrounged for money and food to get by, and then got a scholarship to Boston College, where she earned a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and is now working on a doctorate in English. A beautiful, warm, loving nerd. Such was she, but there was steel in her as well. Anyone who has accomplished as much as she has with the meager means she was given must give them credit. It was also there that she met Kaplan. My therapist was giving me advice. Nasha became my best friend, and Kaplan. He was my buddy, too. They both had sexual overtones, but they weren't like me. Or at least not like me they met. I never had a crush on anyone. I'd always had a pack of admirers, I used them all without remorse, and they used me the same way. My parents were the only people I really loved, and I was always a little proud of my aloofness. Nyasha and Kaplan didn't play. Would you call them unsophisticated? Naive? Maybe, but they were definitely real. What I saw was what I got, and I liked what I saw. I practiced with Nasha 4 days a week and played tennis with Kaplan. She was 3 times stronger than me, and for my size, I was strong as hell. She was just, stronger. Kaplan had the meanest serves I'd ever seen in tennis, but if you could get him to run, to change direction, you could beat him. What struck me most was that every time we sat together on the bench, him sweating and panting like an angry bull, it never once bothered him that he'd lost to a girl. They both let me snuggle with them, but Kaplan was only okay with it if Nasha was around, though she was always up for a cuddle. I was always inviting them to visit, taking them out on my boat, inviting them to parties, taking them on vacations to Mexico, and we talked all the time. Kaplan didn't actually work at Nordstrom. Or rather, he was working, but it was a break from his real job, which seemed to be an internship at one of the country's large publicly traded firms. Apparently he was a pretty attractive employee, because his boss was paying him a lot and seemed to be planning for him to be CFO within 10 years. On Wednesday, I took Nasha out to lunch and we decided to go for a bike ride. She always had a hard time keeping up with me, even though she was incredibly strong and fit. I was lighter, but also more experienced. We wanted to lose a few pounds gained at lunch. We returned and chilled on the back balcony for a while, sipping sweet tea from tall glasses. Nasha, do you smoke? I asked. EW. No, she said. Do you? I laughed. No, I mean the grass. She laughed. Kush. God salad, she said. Oh my God, really? I was a little stunned. Since I came to your country, she said. In Africa, many times. Why are you so surprised? Because, baby, you're a fucking English major, I said. She snorted. Some of the world's greatest poets wrote from opium dreams. No, you're my sweet little librarian, I teased her. Yes, I am steeped in wickedness. She looked at me, and those impossibly huge black eyes sparkled. I have ice cream cake, I said. I'm too full to eat cakes, she said. Even after a trip like this. I laughed. No, bae, a kush called ice cream cake. Does it taste like ice cream cake? She asked. She was killing me. No, I'm afraid not. It tastes a lot like weed, but the buzz is pretty damn good, I told her. We'll feel so energized that after we clean this place we'll go and clean yours, I assured her. Won't Kaplan like it? I have no idea, she said. We've never had that conversation. Then we'd better not, I said. Why can't we ask him? She was perplexed. Really? Would you get high with me? Will you guard me? She asked. Baby, I'm never going to let anything bad happen to you. She squeezed me. I trust you, Stump. Well, I'm not the kind of person you should trust, I told her. But in this case, you can. She pulled out her phone, launched FaceTime, and soon Kaplan appeared. You know I'm working, right? He said. We want to talk to the manager, Nasha said, then giggled madly. Are you alone? I asked. Hold on a second. We saw him enter the office. What happened? Kaplan, do you mind if Nasha gets high with me? I asked. What the hell? I mean, smoking cannabis? Yes. I'd like that, love, she said. Where are you? He asked. Oh, never mind. I can see. Are you going to stay there? He asked her. She looked at me. Yes, I said. You can come over for dinner tonight and pick her up. Are you okay with that? It's kind of unexpected, he said. What the hell, come on. I get off at 5:30. Will 6 be good for dinner? Nasha and I boarded our spaceship and I was bewitched by her. She became even softer, gentler, more loving, and opened up in a way I had never experienced with her before. She giggled constantly, and it was as if this tall dusky angel goddess was cuddled up to me on my couch. When Kaplan came in, dinner was almost ready, and we were cuddled up on the couch, giggling like little children. He eyed us suspiciously, as if he were looking for a minefield to avoid. "Looks like you two had a good time." He smiled, and it was like someone turned on music in the room. We both jumped up and smothered him in a girl's arms. He didn't seem to mind. He adamantly refused to rock out with us, but he got over it and drank 2 beers, which, for what it's worth, helped him mellow out and cheer up. Some people are originally stupid assholes, and when high, whatever they were before, they just get magnified and become insufferable. Others are loving, gentle people, and they just become that way. They both lose a little bit of that awkwardness they had, like they've been homeschooled all their lives or something. It can produce amazing results if it's the right kind of home, but it can also produce social knuckleheads, for sure. They were the right type, but also had a certain hesitancy when dealing with other people, as if they were afraid they would say the wrong thing and someone would laugh at them. I realized early on that they needed to be protected. There were sharks in the pool and they were like peaceful whales, just doing their thing and not paying attention to anything else. And you also got the feeling that although neither of them would ever start a fight, they could tell how it would end. I was at my therapist's office and was telling her about the amazing thing Nasha had done the day before. "I'm telling you, Lauren," she quoted about 100 lines from some English poet, straight from memory. "How do you feel about them?" she asked. "I mean, you talk about them a lot. They seem to be one of the most enjoyable aspects of your life." "What the fuck? You think you're a psychologist or something?" "How do I feel about them, Ms. Young?" "Are you serious?" "Yes. What's more, I'm going to take notes." She picked up a pencil and notepad and started the recorder. "Shit. That's why I pay you the big bucks," I told her. "Let me think for a minute." "Okay, but first tell me how long you've known them." I thought about it for a moment. "Almost 2 years," I said. "Okay, back to thinking," she said. "How did I feel about them?" "I mean, they were my best friends. Hell, they were my only friends. I knew a bunch of people, but there was no one like them. Kaplan was like one of those huge teddy bears you see at the county fair in some town with 5 streets, and they hang there in the back like you can conquer it. What you don't realize is that by the time you win, you've already spent enough to buy the top 3 on Amazon. I wanted one, but the price was hurting Nyasha. I found that I used to not care who got hurt. If I saw something I wanted, I took it. To hell with these people, I didn't care about them. And why should I? If I could take it, then it didn't belong to them originally, they just hadn't recognized it yet. I also realized that it was somewhat disgusting of me to want something that could be taken away. I mean, obviously, if they can be taken away, they're garbage. Wow. Lauren kicked my chair. "Hey. I have other clients, you know." I laughed. "Sorry, I just had an epiphany. You see, I'm a psychologist." "Would you care to explain your epiphany?" "No, because that has nothing to do with what you asked me." She sighed. "Okay, are you going to tell me what you think about the question?" "Yeah." "I'm sorry. I love them, Lauren." My voice trailed off, and it was like I was numb. Those words. Something I'd never felt, except in the abstract, towards my parents, an emotion, they were a physical wave rolling over me. I had been high so many times, I had done everything I could eat, drink, smoke or rub in my stomach, I had a brief addiction, I had spent 3 months in rehab, but I had never felt anything that gave me the kind of endorphin rush I got in that moment, and before that I had no idea what addiction was. I felt myself shaking, like I was outside of my body, and suddenly I was sobbing with frustration at my life, at who I was as a person, who I had become and who I was becoming. I loved Kaplan and Nyasha. But they were like a person on another level. I had no idea why they liked me, but apparently they did. I mean, I knew exactly how to attract people, but I was almost never good at it with them. It seemed, dishonest, like I was giving them glitter. It had nothing to do with me, but it had to do with them. They were too beautiful for anything but the truth, and I felt it without even acknowledging my feelings. I loved them, and I was a villain. Okay, me a moment to pull myself together. Lauren moved over to my couch, wrapped her arms around me, and wiped my eyes with her tissues. It was awkward as hell when I finally pulled myself together, but she lowered herself to the floor in front of me and took my hands in hers. "Stump, you don't need me anymore," she said. "Not for this, anyway. You're not a villain, Stump. You're a supervillain. A lot of heroes go dark." I took a deep breath. "Yeah, that's right. Okay, Skeletor will be back with more interesting disasters later." I squared my shoulders and led my cute little ass to the door. Opening it, I paused and looked back. "Thanks, baby. You deserve the big bucks." "I know, right? Go ahead." I wagged my finger at her, and she laughed as I closed the door. In the elevator, it hit me again, but I managed to contain myself. There was some creep peeking at me the whole way down. Any sign of weakness could have been fatal. He could have touched me. I let him get out first and followed him. From a distance. That afternoon around 3 o'clock, I got a text from Kaplan asking if I could come to her house for dinner. I was a little nervous about it, would I be okay or like a maniac, but I agreed. When I arrived, I forgot all about it. Dinner, too, was forgotten. They were sitting on their couch from the store, Kaplan holding Nasha in his arms, and she was crying. I rushed over to her and cuddled on her other side. "What happened, baby? Did someone die? Did someone get hurt?" She crushed me, and there was an infinite sadness in her gorgeous silky voice. "No, Stump. It's nothing like that. Thank you for coming." "Oh, bae, don't be like that. I love spending time with you, and I do it every chance I get. Just tell Stamp what's got you so upset." "Oh, it's because of my stupid thesis." You could feel the sadness in her voice. "There's this person who keeps stalling. He's told others that he's sure I stole my research, and he's seen it before." "What is his name and what position does he hold?" I asked her. She was looking at me with those exotic eyes, her head resting on my shoulder, all those pounds of glossy curls covering me like a blanket, and Kaplan was a solid presence on the other side of her. "Why do you want to know this, Stamp?" "I'm going to fuck him," I told her. What does that mean?" "I don't know what it means," she said, sounding scared or something. "I know, but it's okay," I told her. "I know what it means." Kaplan was looking at me with one eyebrow raised, and I was going to act like the maniac I'd thought of earlier if he didn't stop. "Are you talking about breaking his legs or something, Stump?" I laughed. "Well, no. Do you want his legs broken, Nyasha?" She looked horrified. "No, of course not. Here's what I've been thinking. I've done a lot of things in my life that now disgust me, and if you think you need to hear it for your own peace of mind, I'll tell you. I won't like telling you, and you'll probably hate me for it, but I know people, I have connections in the community, I can figure things out. Everyone has secrets, sweet ones, and some have shameful secrets." They froze at my every word, seemingly stunned. "Speak, oh silent ones," I demanded, feeling extremely vulnerable and unsure. Kaplan did a double take, and Nasha squeezed me. "No, Stump. I don't want you to do bad things," she said. "It's just the way he is." "I understand, baby. I knew you felt that way, but I'm not like that. I'm not sad, I'm vengeful." "Vigilant shit," Kaplan said and broke into his adorably awkward laugh. "What?" puzzled Nastia. "It's a song," I explained. "Taylor Swift," Kaplan told her. "So sue me. I'm a Swiftista." "Ah, we need to hear this." She looked at me expectantly. "Now." "Yes. If Stump is going to engage in lynching, I want to know what it is." We listened to it, and Nasha was thrilled. "Why didn't you show me this before?" she asked. I laughed. "You like the tribal beats. I like them too, so we listen to them." "That's not it." She tilted her head to the side, as she did when she was thinking, and flashed her eyes at me. She had the most expressive eyes, and she communicated in a very physical way. Her face, her hands, her body spoke to you as much as her words, but especially those eyes. The almost black center contrasted with the extraordinary whiteness of those huge eyes. In that dark and mysterious complexion, she was simply stunning, and she flirted with those eyes, not intentionally, but letting you see the playful spirit within her. "No, I think it's tribal strikes," she finally said. "Another tribe. Women." I marveled. "Yeah, you're right. Just don't tell Kaplan, he'll think we're weird." They both laughed, and I felt Kaplan's arm around Nasha reach out and move to my shoulder, his huge palm encircling my neck, his fingers sliding up, tangling in my hair, soothing. "Nobody wants you to do a lynching, Stump," he said. "I don't think Nasha wants that." "Do you?" She hesitated. "I hate him," she said at last. "I haven't done anything wrong, I haven't hurt him in any way." "Is everything he said true?" I asked. "No, it isn't," she said. "Vigilant shit, that's what it is. Look, I'm not doing anything illegal, unless you think it's unfair to stalk him without him ever finding out. I mean, it is, but he deserves it. He's making my beloved sad, standing in her way, just out of spite. What kind of person does that? Someone I should send to the ass, that's who." "Do you think I should kick his ass?" asked Kaplan. Nasha glanced at him. "No," she said. "You'll be charged with a crime and put in jail." I laughed. "I agree, Kaplan. But I think it's great that you're willing and able." "Yes," she hastened to agree. "Thank you, Kaplan. I didn't know." "You'd be surprised, but I'm willing to do anything for you," he said. She leaned over and kissed him. "What are you going to do, Stump?" "I have no idea," I said. "I don't know a damn thing about him. You give me his details and I'll look into it. As soon as I find him, I'll let you know. Would you like some egg rolls?" "Kaplan, go down and get us some egg rolls." He gently stroked the back of my head and stood up. "I'm going to leave then. Wait for one of you to give me some money." "I don't have any money." I gave him some money and he left. We had a great night, and I went to bed feeling as peaceful as I had when I was 10 years old. It took me a minute to figure out how to approach this. I've killed people before, but this was different. When I'd done it before, I knew the victims well. They deserved what they got. I was a nice girl, so if I hurt someone, they deserved it. I didn't want anyone to know who screwed this guy over. Nasha got the information for me from the university. When dealing with real estate law, sometimes you need an investigation, and I knew good professionals. I had money, they knew me, and they were happy to investigate Professor Adam Tracy. Turns out he was into cocaine and partying with students. I procrastinated until I found a way to end up at one of those parties. I snapped Kaplan up and met him for lunch, ordering him not to say a word to Nastia. We got some nice cheese sandwiches from Ninth Street Deli and sat down at a table on the sidewalk. For a while we just talked, but I sensed he was up to something. He was like a big kid, couldn't contain his curiosity any longer and leaned in closer. He smelled delicious. "Are you doing some dirty business you don't want Nasha to know about?" he said in a half-whisper, conspiratorially. It was all I could do to keep myself from tasting him. He laughed at the fact that he'd said unsophisticated shit. "I talk to you too much," he said. I pretended to be shocked and hurt, and he pretended to believe me. I loved these little games we played. That's how I knew they loved me, him and Nash. They knew I loved these little emotional dramas and they loved playing them with me. I mean, I'm sorry, you know how you talk. I don't talk to you much, really. No, you shouldn't, I told him. You and Nasha really need to get rid of that shabby little apartment and move in with me. I'll never get the chance to completely corrupt you if you refuse to give yourself over to my power. That's the first time I've ever heard you underestimate yourself. He laughed at the look I threw at him. Yeah, well then turn on your big brain and figure out how you can take me to the party tonight without telling Nastia, I told him. Can you take pictures and videos on your phone? I mean, do you know how? He looked offended. Huh? I'm a gamer, remember? I'm into all sorts of tech stuff. I snorted. Right. This is a person who doesn't even have TikTok or Insta on their phone. He laughed. I know how to use the camera. Good man. I admired him, and I wanted to taste him. I kissed his huge hand, which I held. He looked extremely uncomfortable and I had to laugh. Don't worry, it was just a little piece, big boy. So can you get out of the house? Yes. Ours is going to a book reading with my sister. I'll just tell her I'm going to the game with a friend. Just won't tell her it's you or what the game is. I can feel the game brewing, right? Yes. Kaplan, I'll be acting shady tonight. Not with you. More like for you. For Nash, actually. You may not like what you see. Remember, I'll never play with you and Nasha. I want you to tell me you believe me, and I want you to tell me that again when it's over. I'm going to show you something that I'm ashamed of, but that I'm very, very good at. He took my small hand in both of his huge ones. I trust you, Stamp. We both love you. We've talked about you so much. You're different to us. Neither of us have ever met anyone like you. I don't think there is anyone else like you. I don't need to see anything to know, Stump. Anyone who knows you can see, but I don't think you let anyone else recognize you, do you? Everyone sees what you want them to see. You, me, Nasha don't talk about it too much, but she tells me everything you tell her, and she and I have talked about you. Oh. That doesn't sound good. Had I really screwed up? What do you mean? I asked. We both know you're like controlled chaos, Stump, and the only thing keeping you from setting the world on fire is something you don't show anyone. Damn. This man was very deep, that's for sure. You have a very honest face, I said. He almost choked on his Coke. How do I get dressed? He asked. Like you're still in college, I said. You can do it, kid. You too, he said. He was right. I absolutely can. People tend to underestimate my age because I'm petite. I've used that to my advantage many times. We met at the place where the party was being held. Kaplan escorted me inside, brought us drinks, and went about his business. What's my business? He asked outside. Talk to the young women, have a drink, take your time, socialize, but most importantly, don't lose sight of me. I'm counting on you, Kaplan. Don't lose sight of me. That's terrible, he said. Okay, I know what to do. Professor Adam Tracy was already there, and he was running lines and crossed all of mine over the course of the evening. It ended when Kaplan entered the room we had retired to for a little privacy. Time to go, he said, holding out his hand to me. I pulled my dress back into place, slapped the good professor on the throat with the edge of my palm, put on my shoes, took Kaplan's hand, and we left while he gagged and held his throat. When we got into the Uber, Kaplan finally relaxed. Did you get the tape? I asked. He patted himself on his pocket. Here and on the cloud. Are you all right, Stump? I smiled. Yeah. But I'm high. Can I come home with you? I feel like you hate me right now. He pulled me into his seat and squeezed me. I don't hate you, he said. I didn't think it was possible to be so infatuated with someone. He thought he was going to be the happiest man on the planet. Yeah. His luck just ran out, I said. What are you going to do? He asked. Talk to his wife, I said. Send a little material to the university, to law enforcement, make it spread around the school. When we arrived, Nastia was at home, wondering why we were together. They sat on either side of me on the couch, and Kaplan told her the whole story. I could see the shock on her face, but there was something else, too. When she looked at me, she glowed differently. Her huge exotic brown eyes grew soft and warm, and she drew closer to me and pressed herself harder against me. Then she would look away from what Kaplan was saying for a moment, and then she would look at me again. When he finished telling me about the big adventure, she took my face between her long dainty fingers and kissed me. It was fire, everything I'd imagined it would be, and it lasted a long time. I glanced at Kaplan, and he was watching us like a mesmerized man. I winked at him, and he sort of blinked, then enclosed us both in his huge arms. I can't believe it, Nasha repeated. I don't think his academic reputation will survive, I told her. Soon we'll start calling you Dr. Nash. The effects of the cocaine were wearing off, and I could feel a huge withdrawal coming on. It had been a while, and although I'd been feeling pretty sparkly for a while, I was now starting to remember why I didn't do that kind of shit anymore. Nastia drove me home. Stump, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, she assured me. I'm so grateful to you. Let me ask you, why did you do that? I think for 2 reasons, I explained. 1, I love you, and that's all that matters. 2, he was throwing shade at you, you didn't deserve it, and I hate that. God, Nasha, how someone who meets you can dislike you is beyond me. I love you, too, she said. And so does Kaplan. I know, baby, I told her. Right now Stamp is pretty wrecked, and she needs a bed. She insisted on getting up and putting me to bed. I was barely on my feet, she brought me a bottle of water, kissed me and left. It took another month for the fallout to settle in, and then we attended the ceremony where Dr. Nash was named the next prodigy in economics. She was truly brilliant. I took her, Kaplan, and her mother, who had flown in from Africa, with me to the celebration. Napata, Nasha's mom, stayed with me, and she was the older version of her daughter. She held the traditions of a wise woman, and talking to her was like listening to thousands of years of African history. She was one of the nicest people I had ever met. I wondered what my parents would think of her. I introduced them to Nasha, and she instantly charmed them to the point where it became impossible for me to visit without bringing her along if I expected to be quiet. My sweet little mother was constantly occupied with her, and Papa finally explained that in his rebellious youth he had changed his name to Fairtax, and named me Stump after his favorite objects, stamps, he collected them, and taxes, he was a Protestant. They discussed abstruse economic topics, while my mom and I indulgently watched them. Nasha and Kaplan finally had a date, and Nasha wanted to come over to my place to talk about their wedding. We got heated, had a bite to eat, and she called Kaplan to tell him we were high and needed a ride home. He promised to pick her up after work. He was back at his downtown firm, working as personal assistant to the CEO. A few hours passed. We were lying on my living room floor, listening to The Essential Tailor on Apple Music. A nest of pillows and blankets formed around us, drinking Sprite and cranberry juice, giggling, cuddling, and talking about her wedding preparations. Stump will be my maid of honor, she promised. Stump is very proud to be Nasha's maid of honor, I said. She might even be able to refer to herself in the first person. We giggled like banshees and she collapsed on top of me, panting. I got out from under her. She was heavy. I rolled her over and rested my head on her impressive curls, looking into that gorgeous face. I pulled myself up so our faces were on the same level. I'm so happy for you, baby. You deserve nothing but good things, and Kaplan is good. He is, she agreed. You're good too, Stamp. I'm very happy with Kaplan, but I need you, too. You have me, I assured her. I brought our faces close together, my nose touching hers, our hair mingling in black gold and pale fire, drowning in the dark mysterious pools of her eyes. Our lips made contact, and suddenly she kissed me with all the force that blazed beneath the surface of that ravishing beauty. No, baby. We have to stop, I sighed. Kaplan. She gifted me with one of her dazzling smiles that lit up her face like a flame. I have permission, she said. What? Wait, what? She nodded. You have no idea, Stump. You're another part of us, naughty, willful, dangerous, but I don't think you're a danger to me or Kaplan. We know you, your heart. It made me cry like a baby and she just hugged me and told me how much she loved me. I want to show you, to make love to you, she whispered. But... Kaplan, I objected. Yes, Kaplan, she sighed. Tell me about him. Don't you love him? Yes, I assured her, but I promised. I would never. Would you kiss him like that? She asked. Make love to him? I sat up, suddenly becoming very serious. Nyasha, are you suggesting? I'm not implying anything, she said. I'm speaking quite frankly. We need you, Stamp. You have no idea how much, do you? You don't know how much he and I have talked about it. Oh, my God. That was the last thing I could have expected. I could imagine what I'd have with each of them individually, but how the hell could any of this work? Baby, no, this is a very bad idea, trust me. She pulled me back down and wrapped herself around me like a python, burying her face in my hair and whispering in my ear. Stump needs to explain everything. God, she was difficult. Almost impossible. You and Kaplan, you have something, I told her. It's perfect, you're made for each other. I'm something else, Nasha. I love what you two have, and I would ruin it. You won't ruin it. There was a determination in her voice that I hadn't often heard from her before. She could be fierce, not at all like her usual warm squishy self. We know you, Stamp. Yes, you are what you think you are, and more. What do you mean? Asked I. She caught my earlobe between her gleaming white teeth and bit down on it, turning me into a puddle. I mean, you're a bad bitch. I know it, you know it, everyone knows it. She chuckled lightly. How many friends do you have, Stump? I have no idea, I said. No one like you. She made a purring sound. I don't have the likes of you either, she admitted. But that's what I meant. You don't have friends like me because you don't care about anyone else. I don't think you ever cared at all. I nodded. Yeah, baby, you got me hooked. I've never met anyone like you before. Well, Kaplan. I know. Her hand cupped my cheek, and she turned my face toward hers. I've never felt this way with anyone but you and Kaplan. Oh my God, Nasha. You're mean, I told her. Yeah, I know. She giggled again. We're winning the game with you, Stamp. We're making you fall in love with us. I was amazed, she was absolutely right. They had flipped the script on me, not that they had done it intentionally, but they had done it nonetheless. I was a predator, a hunter, a heartbreaker. I took what I wanted, but they, without even doing anything but being themselves, made me feel things I didn't even want to feel. I didn't want to fall in love, especially with handsome nerds. I pondered the future while she stroked me. It was my destiny to live up to their expectations, to try to be a man worthy of their love. I dreamed about them at night, and I couldn't imagine my life wit. How't them? Did you really talk it over? I asked. My God, how did you even start this conversation? She laughed her low throaty laugh. That was rather embarrassing, honestly. I can only imagine. Her hand snuck inside my top, long cool fingers stroking my spine, the small hollow on my back making me shiver. You were leaving one night and Kaplan walked you to the door. You know how you are, Stamp. I've been watching you too, the way you communicate. You want each other. Anyone who knows you both can see that. Then I realized you were looking at me the same way Kaplan did. Like he wants to eat you? I played with one of the curls hanging down her face. That's right, she said. When he came back and sat down, I told him, I want her. He didn't understand at first. Did you tell him all the racy details of your innermost thoughts? She laughed. Yes. I discovered that he has some racy details, too. Stamp, Kaplan, and I are getting married. We'd like to have our own ceremony with you, just the three of us, right afterward. I burst into tears. I had no idea what the hell was happening to me, but I was terrified, and when I looked at Nasha through my tears, there was horror on her face. I had to do something. Baby, I'm scared, I told her. I don't know how to love anyone. I know I'm going to ruin everything, hurt you, and believe me, that's the last thing I want to do. Yeah, you're going to ruin it, she said. So will I. So will Kaplan. You like being outrageous, Stump, and I get that. You're a lot braver than I am. Bullshit, I said. I'm brave enough in some situations, but there's more in your little finger than in my whole body. Thank you for saying that, but I want to say that I believe with all my heart that you're not at all what you think you are. It's going to happen, Stump. You've got to get used to that thought. I pressed myself against her, mingling our eyelashes together. Are you sure? I asked. Her fingers tangled in my hair, and we began to kiss. God knows I'd kissed enough princes and frogs in my life, but this was a spiritual, life-changing kiss. I could feel her, and not just in a physical sense. Time became a meaningless thing, and I enveloped her with my emotions, and she enveloped me with euphoria. It seemed like I existed only in that universe where Nasha and Stump were the only beings that existed. I felt the invasion, the warmth, the hard flesh on my back. Hello, Kaplan, I murmured. She told you. I nodded. It's a good thing you came. We started without you. I noticed. I have some catching up to do. Hello, beautiful. He reached up to stroke Nastia's face. I see you didn't waste any time losing your clothes, she said. I didn't want to be the only one dressed, he said. I was sandwiched between my two lovers. It was meant to be. I kissed the lips, so luscious and luxurious, of the dusky goddess. The night turned into a series of strobe lights, flashes of Kaplan, Nastia, me frozen in black and white, and the ecstasy that went on, burning new pathways into my brain, my body, my life. This was a new game, and I planned to win.